this is Janet Diane Moya Swerdlow with another edition of our Expansions podcast. And as you can see, Stuart's still not here. He is in Europe right now, so I'm going to catch you up on some very interesting things which I have discussed with him and some things which I haven't told him yet. So if he was here, he would have a lot to say, trust me. But anyway, I want to start out with this, and I also want to inform you, of course, as Stuart would, that this is the last full week of May, or actually we're ending the last week of May, and we're beginning in June. So with that said, we'll move forward onto the Egypt Air Flight 804. Now I've been talking to you about the numbers, the 804 and the 48. So anyways, I was reading one of the latest reports. They are still not saying that it was an explosion. However, the Associated Press quoted a senior Egyptian forensics official who said that 80 body parts he examined at a Cairo morgue were so small that it suggested that there isn't even a whole body part like an arm or a leg. So he claims that the logical explanation is that it was an explosion. Now remember, let's go back to flight 804, and he said 80 body parts. So 804, 80. So here we have this 80 that keeps coming up again. And then following this, there was another article, and it said what the last 48 hours of doomed flight 804 revealed. So they keep coming up with 48 and 804 or 84. So watch my podcast from last week if you haven't done that yet, because I had a whole string of 4884 things that happened last week, and here it's still continuing. So I'm going to kind of skip around a bit. I tried to put it in as best order as I could. So with that, we're going to go on to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump said that he would probably date his daughter, Ivanka Trump, if she weren't his daughter. And so that creeped everybody out, and I have to agree. I think that's very odd. And of course, I have been talking to you about how they seem to be pushing incest. So even though it creeps people out, he has still said it, and once he said it, people start talking about it. So I thought that was interesting. And then I'm also talking, especially on the blogs, about pseudoscience becoming real. And here we have Michelle Obama, who obviously did not put this report together, but they're claiming as a part of her Let's Move push that the Food and Drug Administration are now putting new warning labels on food products, and the scientists are saying that it's not based on sound science. Now, according to this report, that apparently these changes to the nutrition facts label will require manufacturers to list added sugars, which scientists say lacks scientific rigor. It says the label will also cost companies at least $640 million to update, and a net social cost of $1.4 billion. And of course, Mrs. Obama said in her statement, which of course I'm sure she didn't write herself, but quote, "I am thrilled that the FDA has finalized a new and improved nutrition facts label that will be on food products nationwide. This is going to make a real difference in providing families across the country the information they need to make healthy choices," unquote. And I just want to say, like Stuart would say, really? Because the people who are buying this kind of food, they're not going to read these labels. And even if they do read them, they're not going to know what it means. And in the meantime, again, I want to remind you, the scientists keep saying that the new label is misleading, and apparently it was based on the 2015 dietary guidelines, whose committee did not include a single expert on sugars. So for whatever reason, somebody's going to be making a lot of money, and most likely it's not going to be you, and nor will it help you in whatever health decisions you have to make. So this, according to them, is from Mrs. Obama, which again, no. Anyway, moving along to Putin. I've also been talking to you about Putin and all the military buildup that has been happening on the countries that are surrounding Russia. And Putin is now saying that Romania and Poland could find themselves in the sights of Russian rockets because they are hosting elements of a U.S. missile shield that Moscow considers a threat to its security. Now, apparently earlier this month, the U.S. military, which says the shield is needed to protect from Iran, not threaten Russia, switched on the Romanian part of the shield, and then work is still proceeding on another part of the shield in Poland. So Putin was in a joint news conference in Athens with the Greek Prime Minister, and he said, quote, "If yesterday in those areas of Romania people simply did not know what it means to be in the crosshairs, then today we will be forced to carry out certain measures to ensure our security." And then he continues on to say it will be the same case with Poland. Now again, Putin did not specify what actions Russia would take, but he did insist that it was not making the first step, only responding to moves by Washington. And he says, quote, "We won't take any action until we see rockets in areas that neighbor us." So again, there's kind of building up this give and take with Russia, whereas before we were kind of getting on friendly terms, and now they're making it sound like we're having issues. So what they're doing with Russia, I don't know, but of course it's always a show, just remember that. And then in Japan, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe made a pointed comparison to the global financial crisis 8 years ago, which he called the Lehman scale crisis, which will be happening soon, according to him, and a group of 7 leaders that recently had a meeting about the emerging economies. Abe presented data showing that commodity prices had fallen 55% since 2014, the same margin they fell during the global financial crisis. So he's interpreting this as a warning of the reemergence of a Lehman scale crisis. So we've been talking about a monetary financial crisis for quite some time. We've also been talking about be careful this fall, so let's see what happens. And then, of course, one of my favorite topics is the Pope. And he was in France recently, and he was asked this question. The fear of accepting migrants is partly based on a fear of Islam. In your view, is the fear that this religion sparks in Europe justified? And Pope Francis answered, quote, "Today I don't think that there is a fear of Islam as such, but of ISIS and its war of conquest, which is partly drawn from Islam. It is true that the idea of conquest is inherent in the soul of Islam. However, it is also possible to interpret the objective in Matthew's Gospel, where Jesus sends his disciples to all nations in terms of the same idea of conquest." So I think, unquote, we have a little bit more facts and information of things that Stuart and I have been telling you about, that there is a new Crusades going on. So again, keep your ear open for what the Pope has to say, because he keeps telling you more things. And of course, here in the States, we have the ongoing issue with the transgender bathrooms. And now 11 states have gotten together to sue the Obama administration's transgender directive. Texas, of course, leading the pack, and 10 other states filed suit against the Obama administration, giving access to public school facilities and firing the first shot in what is likely to be a protracted and messy legal battle over that guidance, which, of course, as we talked about, there's going to be a civil war, and who knew what it was going to be about? Well, last time it was on race, now this time it's going to be on sexuality, apparently. So keep your eyes open for this one. And I also keep telling you about how that they're changing history right in front of you. Well, it seems like they're continuing to go underground to get that information. And you might have heard recently about the underground stone structures likely built by Neanderthals in a cave found deep inside of a cave in France. So apparently, Neanderthals about 176,500 years ago, I don't know how they come up with the numbers, apparently they were proving that the ancient cousins of humans were capable of more complex behavior than previously thought. This is what we keep hearing. They came a different way. It was at a different time period. Now the Neanderthals were more advanced than what we thought. So if you go online and you can look up this particular article, that there are oval structures that have some kind of arrangement. The oval structure measures 172 square feet and 25 square feet in total. And the researchers are speculating that these structures may have served some symbolic or ritual purpose. And I keep telling you that that also keeps coming up. Everything is ritual this and ritual that. The experts are saying a plausible explanation is that this was a common meeting place for some type of ritual social behavior. And then there is a Neanderthal expert at a university in the Netherlands that says that this cave may represent only the tip of the iceberg of Neanderthal culture. but most relics would have been made of organic material and decayed long ago. So what they're indicating is they have to go further underground in order to find out more things about the Neanderthals and that they were more advanced than what we thought. So what else are they going to find underground? And speaking of underground, right here in the U.S., there's an unusual Native American ceremonial site that was unearthed in Ohio. Apparently, again, they talk about they were not performing mortuary rituals. They think it was celebration of life rituals. And it says most contemporary sites in Ohio focused on burial ceremonies and the building of mounds. To find evidence of life celebrations is an unexpected and exciting discovery. It gives us surprising insights about these prehistoric Ohioans that lived nearly 2,300 years ago. Now, I also think it's interesting that they're calling them prehistoric Ohioans because there were no states back then. So usually they refer to them as indigenous people of some kind, and they start talking about Native Americans, and then they move to prehistoric Ohioans. Again, I don't think so. And then moving right along, we have talked to you about chimeras. Now there are scientists who are trying to grow chimera embryos. Now, a chimera is a cross between a human and an animal. And so now it claims that there are a group of scientists, and if they're telling you this is what they're trying to do, this tells you that, of course, they've already done it. It says their goal is to grow human organs in farm animals for transplant into terminally ill patients. The National Institute of Health has blocked funding while it considers the implications, but scientists are pushing ahead with alternative funding. It says the work itself involves deleting a gene needed to grow a particular organ in, say, a pig embryo. Then human stem cells are inserted in hope that a human organ, such as a pancreas, will develop when the embryo is placed inside a pig's womb. This, I think, is very interesting because this is so reminiscent of Lemurian Atlantean times. Then they go on to say that researchers are proceeding cautiously, removing the so-called chimera embryos for dissection after a few weeks gestation. But they say the concerns remain, which of course I agree. One is that the human stem cells could create human brain cells in the pigs and change their cognitive state. Another is that the chimeric pigs could end up with human sperm and eggs, mate with other chimeras, and give birth to a creature that's part pig and part human. Now, to me, this is setting the path. We hear about the Mothman, we hear about the Dogman, we hear about the Wolfman, and Stuart and I have talked to you about these in our seminars, and here they're really telling you that it exists. Let's see, a UC of Davis researcher says that ethical considerations are at the forefront by the scientists, and he says, quote, "We're doing this for a biomedical purpose. I don't consider that we're playing God," unquote. Again, I'm going to say, really? Anyway, very interesting things that are happening in our society and scary things. Of course, as I told you, they've already been done. Now they're telling you that they're doing it. And of course...